Welcome back. Today in our series, setting up Savage Worlds Foundry for a one-shot adventure, we're going to make our first scene. Now, creating scenes in Foundry is a multi-step process, and the first thing we're going to do is create our battle map, our image, and then basically put up all the walls to the block line of sight. We're going to do that outside of Foundry. We're going to then import it into Foundry, and then set up our lighting. So this is going to be a fairly in-depth video, and I must say this is not the only way to do it. It's just the way I find the most effective. Now, there's lots of different bits of software out there, from like Paint Cartographer to Arkenforge to Dungeon Genie or Dungeon Architect, whichever that AI one is, and they're all okay. I've yet to find one that meets my particular style. So I basically use Inkscape for all of my design and then import it into Foundry with a custom tool that I wrote, and I'll share it down below in my GitHub repository. Well, and before we begin, I want the nobody scene. Need to show off my background. This is a piece of art I commissioned from Inky Heart. I'll link her down below as well. I did it for a private Rust server I ran over the holidays, and it looks really good. So just need to brag about that. So for maps. So the map we're going to be using is based on this image. And of course, I always open up in a separate window. And so we're going to get this image prepped and loaded in. As you can see, it's a fairly standard map, and it has no grids. I prefer getting maps with no grids because trying to line up grids in Foundry with actually what's on the printed on the map is almost impossible because they're always slightly off in places, and it just drives me batty. I got this from Drive-Thru RPG, and I'll link the actual product down below. Always support your local artists, and what have you. So let's see, Inkscape. So Inkscape is what I use to create my maps. It's a free bit of vector editing software. And this is the latest version as of this recording, 1.2, I believe. And so this is a blank page as you open it up. So first thing I want to do is set up a grid. So I go to File, Document Properties, Guides. Oh, Grid, sorry. Add a new rectangular grid. I prefer 100 pixels by 100 pixels for my grids. Let's just make this bright, obnoxious, red. Let's see, no, otherwise red. Okay. And for the major lines, purple. Purple is fine. Not that you really need them, but it's good to tell. So I have my grid all set up. Next thing I need to do is bring in my image. And the easiest way to do that is just to drag and drop. And I'll get this little pop-up. I just want to link it. From File, I don't care about the optimizations. Okay. So here we have EO'd image. And I know from the description it's a 25 by 25 image. So over here we have a tool called snapping. So I'll enable snapping. And just jiggle this a bit so it snaps to a corner. And then I count off 25. These are groups of 5. So let's see, do I have it on? Yep, I do have it on I'll zoom in so you can see better. So it's on a purple, so it's 5, 10, 15, 20. Oh, perfect. Exactly 25. So that works out well. And then going down, we're at a purple line right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So we have our image exactly the right size. I'm using the plus minus key to zoom in or out. Okay, so we have our size all set up, ready to go. Next thing we're going to do is document properties. And right here, resize the content, like so. And now our output image is the 25 by 25 grid. Okay, next up, we have to put all the walls in. This is where doing things in Inkscape is far, far superior than doing it inside of Foundry because drawing controls in Foundry, to be honest, just suck. As we don't have any straight lines because this is a cave, I'm going to turn off snapping, which is this control over here. And we're going to turn off the grid as we're not going to need it. Let's see. This guides. I want the grid. There we go. Now we just need to draw all of our walls. Now I use a tool that I wrote to take the data to convert it to Foundry data. I will again link it below, but it's called Extract. And it's just a little simple web-based item that runs locally. So I'll be drawing walls, and they'll be green because that's my terrain wall. So it has to be of this color right here, 00FF00. So just find my line tool. Freehand lines. And make sure we have the color set to green. There we go. To change color on this little bar down here, for the stroke, you just hold down Shift and click on the color. And so it'll show that my stroke is green. If I hover over it, says it's 00FF00. So I skipped a step. So I'm going to delete this. And I have to go over here to Layer Control, which you can open by Control-Shift-L, and add a new layer called Walls. And I want above the current, above the current layer. I want to lock the lower layer so it doesn't shift. That's why I knew I accidentally was on the wrong layer. I'll select walls and then go pick my pen again. Bezier curves, straight lines. And just start drawing. Like so. The thickness of the line really doesn't matter. We just really care about the line. And as you can see, this was going to take a little while, so I'm going to speed this up as I zoom on through. So we have completed drawing all the basic lines. And these are terrain lines, so you won't be able to see through them. And creating all the blocking areas. There's a few spots I'm concerned about, such as right here, making sure that the players can actually, fit through there on the grid system. So I'm going to zoom in, uh, turn on the grid. Yeah, you'll be able to sneak through there. You'll have to hit the 2 keys at once to go diagonally, but that should be fine. Same thing here and here as well. Oh, that's perfect going through there. It looks like everywhere else is navigable. So I'm going to turn off the grid again. And we're going to think about some of the red walls. Red is ethereal, so they block sight, they block sight and light, but they do not block movement. So think like a blanket across part of the cave. You can walk through it, but light doesn't come through. That way you can create like areas of privacy, and if you're not familiar with the cave, quasi-secret areas. So I'm going to zoom out a bit and see where I want to put some curtains. Like this area right here, looks like a good spot for a curtain. Because you have a couple guys here, fireplace. So that's a good spot for a curtain. So I'll draw from here to here, and then change the color to red, as that is our ethereal color. This is way too big to curtain off. And down here as well. Let's see, what's in this corner down here? Looks like you're digging a grave. Not too many other places where you want to curtain things off. Looks like you have a couple shallow graves in here. So maybe right there. Turn that red. And let's go right here as well. Again, turning that red. I'm making sure to go through the walls and connect so it doesn't accidentally, have light leakage if I have any light in there. Over here, and this is kind of like the master, spot right there. But yeah, trying to curtain off this entire thing would be kind of silly. That should be good enough. I mean, we don't want to get too complex. Okay, so we have our walls defined. Next thing we need to do is prepare this for upload. So there's several things we need to do. First, we need to output the background image. So we have an image that'll fit everything. This time, our image is the exact size that we need, so we can just skip that step. So we just mostly need to worry about the walls. So we have to do some technical stuff. So we're going to bring up the XML editor and go to the wall layer, which is right here, and make sure the ID says walls. No, the Inkscape label says walls, but the ID says layer 4. Change that to walls. There's no transform tag on here, so that's good. Several of these like this will say transform because we shifted things around. So but we don't have to worry about that. It's a different layer. We only care about the wall layer. So we can move this off to the side for the moment. So with our wall layer named walls, next thing we have to do is split apart all of these paths into the individual segments. So to do that, we'll just select them all. Red ones are fine. They're all individual segments as is, but we'll select them just to make sure. So everything, all these nodes right here are highlighted. So we'll just select them all this way. As you can see, they turn slightly red. And then there's a little button up here that says break path at selected nodes. We want to click that. As you see, they all turn blue. And then if we click the button over here, ungroup, or was it path break apart? There we go, path break apart. Because now each of these is their own separate segment. Once more, we want to edit. Let's see, where's select all? They keep moving with each new iteration. Select all. And we want to also make sure these are all straight lines. Make selected segment into lines, like so. So far so good. If you look at our XML editor, these are all the separate lines that make up our walls. If we pick one, you see the coordinates right here. But you see these this lowercase m, you want to not have those. So we need to change everything to absolute. So once again, edit, select all. Edit, select all. Thank you. And then extensions, modify path to absolute. And if you look at our XML now, just pick one at random, you see they all have these capital M's, which means it's absolute to the page and not relative to the last path drawn. This will become important as we process it. So we can save this, and then we can save this file. We'll save it as one shots. Bandit Cave. And we want to make sure it is plain SVG, like so. And then we'll pull up our extract tool, which is just a web page. Choose the file. Bandit cap. And it generates the JSON file we'll need to upload. And I'll pull that over into our current folder off to the side so you don't see my lovely mess of a downloads directory. So in our one-shot folder, we now have the Bandicamp SVG, we have the Bandicamp JSON, and the Bandicamp actual image, which I am going to copy, paste, and rename. Bandicamp 1. I did that because this is a linked image back here. If I change this name out here, it will get confused. Okay, now we're ready to go into Foundry. Pull this off to the side. Foundry. Go to the Scene tab. create scene. I'll just call it new because it'll be overwritten in a moment. It's a new scene. I'm going to import data. I'm going to import the Bandicamp JSON file. You can do that by just drag and drop. There we go. I have to actually hit the little button here. Import. Okay, it's successfully imported. As a cut renamed to Bandicamp. Open up the config. So we need to set our background image. So we need to upload that. So user data, worlds, fantasy one shot, scenes. Let's see, create new folder in here under scenes, battle maps. And then we'll upload the file, Bandicamp 1. Hit uploaded, we'll select it, hit save, and here we have our Bandicamp. If we go to the walls tools, you can see our walls are drawn exactly where we drew them. I use this technique of a double green line. It works better with internal walls, but basically the players see through the first green line, but not the second. So it gives you a little extra depth with walls. We see our ethereal walls right here. That'll block line of sight and such, but not movement. So that looks good. We also have this little space around, so we can pull things off the map without hitting a wall. You could technically go right up to the edge with these maps, but I found having a little border space works well. Looking at the configuration file, my extraction tool does allow the setup automatically because I don't like having it that way. But just to go through this, so this is called Bandicamp, but if we show it up here, it says Bandicamp, I want to call it Dark Cave because that's what the players will see. I can spell, really, Dark Cave. So if I save that, you'll see it changes to Dark Cave on here, Bandicamp over here. If you do show navigation, it'll always be up here in the nav, either for you or all players. Background image is pretty self-explanatory. We don't have a foreground image because we don't have anything above the cave. Background color is this dark gray over here. It works, so we're not going to change it. The grid, as I mentioned, I prefer a 100 pixel grid. It's set right here. The dimensions, the extraction tool sets this automatically for me, but you can also come in and change this. This is the width of the image itself, not the entire scene, just the image, just this part right here. This padding percentage, got up to 0.2, is this part right here on the outside. Offset, don't play with that. You'll get confusing. Grid scales, it's technically each grid is 2 yards. But we measure everything in squares anyway, so we're just going to go 1. But if you want real world measurements, each grid is 2 yards. The grid opacity and color, I prefer 35% opacity with black color, but you can change it to anything you want. You can see it updates pretty quickly in the background so you can judge it. But again, I prefer around 35% and black, but it depends on the scene. Lighting, we want all tokens to have vision. So if you don't have token vision, you can't see. You want the fog of war, so you don't know what's out there until you explore it. We're just going to use these colors right here, black and kind of a gray. Global illumination, that's what sets the overall darkness of the cave. If you don't have this turned on, You won't be able to see anything unless you have a light source in the cave itself. Darkness level, this is something that's modified by the light source control as well. This is not like a permanent standard thing. You go to lighting controls and go transition to daylight. It'll go all the way down to 0. If I go transition to darkness, it'll go up to 1. And you can see in the background here, it's slowly getting darker until it goes poof. So go this way. This global illumination setting only applies until we hit a threshold of 65% darkness, then it turns off. As we're in a cave, we'll probably want it to be fairly dark just for ambiance, but keep it a bit low so it's not completely black for the players as they wander around. Ambiance, no, if you have some journal entries to link into this, a playlist of sounds, you can have these set right here. Otherwise, we save, and that's the basic configuration for this. Now to add a bit more touch to it, we want some lighting. So with the lighting controls, as you can see right here, we have a fireplace, so we want to add a fire. So this is the wall level, lighting control level, so we just put a light right there. Delete. We draw it out, the area. As you see, it's hitting the wall, so that's as far as it goes. We can right click to turn it on or off, left click to bring up the config. And so it's kind of bright. And what we want to do is change the animation. We want, let's see. We want a flickering light. Any advanced options don't care about. And we want the light color to be like this orangey color right here. You can see in the background kind of flickering. Intensity, we can play with it. That's pretty bright. Not so much. Let's see. So the bright and dim areas control how bright it is. So we want brightness really close. So see, you can play with this all day. So yeah, that looks good. So we'll just update light source and call it a day. So it will light going on there. Let's see, any other fireplaces on the map? Nothing, 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 nothing. That's a table. So yeah, these bandits, they live in the dark a lot. So we're going to have one light source right there, and we'll call it a day. Now to test out this map, I'm going to pull a creature from the compendium. Do we have a soldier? Soldier. There we go. Pull out one soldier. As you can see, this is why I have the 2-inch radius around the characters by default, because otherwise you won't be able to see very far. And as this guy has not been around, this is his fog of war and how far you can see. If I change the scene so you don't have global illumination on, lighting, so turn off global illumination. So as he moves around, as you can see, that's the curtain that I put in there with the red line. Without the global illumination, you don't see as far until you actually get out there. I'm just using the cursor controls to move my guy around. Just making sure my character can navigate around the map. And hopefully the players will notice this little part right here, because until they go in, they won't see the lights. Yep, outside. Get back in. Okay, so this map is considered done. Make sure I just delete that token, otherwise it'll be there when I pull her up. And that's all it takes to create the scene. Truly, you can add things like spot points for sound, and eventually I'll add in the characters for the scene once I actually get them created. So this is popular with bandits. So anyways, that's how I make maps. There's a lot more that I can do with Inkscape as well. That's the basics. And again, I'll include the extract tool that I use in my GitHub repository. I have the link to it down below. If you have any questions, feel free to leave some comments. Otherwise, thumbs ups are always appreciated, and be sure to subscribe to get the next episode. I'll catch you all later.